The call should not have existed, and that was how the maid knew it was real. In the Blood-Veil Citadel, there were rules older than the stone itself, rules stitched into the walls with oath magic and enforced by fear. A maid could speak only when spoken to. A servant could never summon the king, and yet Sarah Vale quiet hands, lowered eyes. 17 years of perfect obedience stood alone in a corridor that didn't appear on any map, pressing her palm to a seal of living obsidian that throbbed like a heartbeat. The mark on her wrist, the one Aurelian Nocture himself had burned into her skin the day he hired her, ignited with white-hot pain. Her breath shook, not from weakness, but from the horrible certainty that she had reached the point where obedience would kill someone innocent. Down the hall, behind a door protected by layered wards, a girl cried out, sharp, frightened, human. Not a vampire's controlled scream. Not a noble's proud protest. A human girl's fear, small enough to be dismissed, loud enough to be fatal in a palace that did not forgive softness. Sarah closed her eyes and did the unthinkable. She spoke directly into the arcane channel the king had forbidden her to use unless the citadel faced extinction. "My king," she whispered into the burning thread. "Please come home now, she destroy her." She did not say the girl's name. She did not need to. In that one word her was everything Sarah had been protecting in silence, the secret wing, the false ledgers, the lies in the servant registry, the hidden meals that never appeared on household inventories, the blankets that were laundered separately so no one would smell mortal blood. In the palace above, Vesper Kane had arrived like a beautiful storm, wearing velvet and law, smiling as if the world owed her a crown. She was the king's betrothed by covenant, chosen to unite bloodlines and stabilize the realm, yet she moved through the citadel as if she owned it already, ignoring servants unless she was ordering them, ignoring rules unless she was rewriting them. She had been polite at first, too polite, asking questions that sounded harmless. Why does this wing remain sealed? Why do your records have gaps? Why does the king keep a maid assigned to a corridor that no one else is allowed to clean? Sarah had answered with practiced emptiness. The way servants survive powerful people. Yes, my lady. No. My lady, as you wish. But Vesper's eyes had followed her. Sharp as a blade that didn't need to swing to cut. Then this morning, Vesper had smiled and announced she would tour the lower corridors to better understand her future home. She brought no guards. She brought only a single thin ring of silver on her finger, an heirloom of her house, and the kind of confidence that comes from believing cruelty is not a sin, but a tool. The moment her ring brushed the hidden seal, the wards shivered. Not because Vesper was stronger than the king's magic, but because she had patience, and patience was its own kind of power. The door had not opened fully, not at first, but the air had changed. The warded corridor had begun to taste like winter. Sarah had felt it in her teeth. A human girl living too close to vampire magic always felt it. The crying began minutes later when Vesper's voice turned soft and dangerous. "Come out, little secret. I only want to see you." Sarah stepped between them, even though it was forbidden to stand in a noble's path. "My lady," she said, carefully, "this wing is sealed by the king." Vesper tilted her head, smiling as if Sarah had told a joke. "And what a pity," she replied, "that the king isn't here." She lifted her hand and the silver ring flashed. The seal cracked with a sound like bone. The door shuddered open a finger width, enough for cold air to spill out, enough for a small, trembling shadow to appear behind it. The girl Lina had been human when she arrived weeks ago, half-starved, sleeping near the boundary of the enchanted forest, dismissed by patrols as another stray. The king had seen her once from a balcony. Just a glance, but it had changed everything. He'd ordered Sarah to bring the girl to the hidden wing, to keep her warm, to keep her safe, to keep her invisible. He hadn't explained why. He never explained. But the way his eyes had held the girl like winter holding a single flame told Sarah the truth. Aurelian Nocture, feared across continents, had noticed a human in a way he was never supposed to. Lina had not done anything heroic yet. She had only looked up at the citadel, and instead of cursing it, she had whispered, "It's beautiful." Kindness offered to something that had never been kind to her. That was the smallest bravery, and it was the kind that kings, especially lonely ones, remember. Now Lina stood behind the cracked door, wearing a borrowed dress that didn't fit right, her hair tied back with a ribbon Sarah had sewn from scrap. Her eyes were wide, her hands raised like she might calm a wild animal. "I'm sorry," she said to Vesper, voice shaking. "I didn't mean to be here." "I'll go." Vesper's smile widened, satisfied in a way that made Sarah's stomach turn. "Oh, you will," Vesper murmured. "But first, you'll teach the realm a lesson. Because the only thing more disgusting than a traitor is a king with a mortal weakness." Sarah's heart hammered. The king was away at the Obsidian Conclave, negotiating peace with elder vampires who would gladly tear the citadel apart if they sensed vulnerability. Vesper knew that. She had chosen this timing perfectly. She stepped forward, and the air around her hand darkened with blood magic. It was not a killing spell yet. It was worse, a binding meant to expose, to drag Lina into the grand hall for everyone to see. Public shame, public punishment, public justice. Lina flinched back, hitting the wall, and in that moment she looked at Sarah not like a servant. Not like a protector, but like a person. Like someone who believed Sarah might help. Sarah's ears of obedience cracked. She reached for the forbiddance thread, burning her wrist, and sent the call. "Please come home now," she begged. She'd destroy her. And far away, in a chamber of carved bone and crimson fire, the vampire king's wrist erupted in agony. Aurelian Noxra did not flinch when threatened. He did not tremble when wars started. He did not pause when immortals begged for mercy. He ruled by stillness, the kind that made enemies forget how to breathe. So when the mark on his wrist ignited, white-hot and absolute, 13 elder vampires mistook it for a moment of weakness. They were wrong. The burn was not pain the way mortals understood pain. It was law being broken, a sealed channel screaming open inside his blood. Only extinction was meant to trigger it. Only the collapse of everything. Yet the thread pulsed with a voice he knew too well. Sarah Vale, the maid he trusted because she understood silence better than anyone. "My king," her consciousness whispered into his, terrified, shaking, forbiddance. "Please come home now, she destroy her." That single word her struck him harder than any blade. Not it, not the asset, not the secret. Her, a person. A fragile life hidden inside his citadel, Lina, the human girl he had ordered sheltered without explanation. As if an order could erase the fact that he had noticed her, that he had wanted her safe. That the sight of her small kindness had stirred something he had buried centuries ago. For 3,000 years he had chosen crown over comfort, law over longing, distance over desire. Yet the thread did not ask him to choose. It told him he had already chosen without admitting it. Aurelian rose so abruptly the obsidian chair shattered behind him. The sound cracked through the conclave like thunder. Elder lords reached for weapons. Old magic shifted, hungry for bloodshed. Lord Carvath, arrogant and impatient, sneered as if the king's movement was simply theatrics. "You do not walk away from this table," he growled. Aurelian's silver eyes lifted slowly, and the asterisk room chilled not by magic, but by certainty. "This meeting," he said, voice low and terrible, "is over." Carvath slammed a fist down, cracking the stone. "We have not finished negotiating," Aurelian raised one hand. Shadow surged from his body like a living storm, snuffing out every crimson flame. For one heartbeat the chamber drowned in darkness, and when light returned, he was gone. Not fled, vanished with intention. His departing words lingered like a curse across the conclave. "Touch nothing. Harm no one. Or I will erase your bloodlines from history." The elders screamed in outrage, but their outrage could not follow him through space itself. Aurelian tore open a blood portal that had not been used in centuries, burning through wards designed to kill lesser vampires. He moved faster than thought, the world folding around him like paper. Every second mattered. Every breath he took tasted like cold regret. He had created rules to prevent exactly this, the king being tethered to someone vulnerable. Yet vulnerability had found him anyway, wearing a human face and a shy apology. As he ripped through the final barrier and the blood veil, Citadel rose before him, black spires against perpetual twilight. His mind raced with only one image. Lina's eyes, wide, earnest, looking up at his fortress and calling it beautiful. How could anyone call his world beautiful? That question had haunted him since the night he saw her. It was why he had ordered her hidden. It was why he had not allowed himself to speak to her. Because if he did, he would begin to care. And if he cared, the realm would sense it. The realm always sensed weakness. Inside the citadel, the wards quivered. He could feel them collapsing from the inside, tampered with by someone clever. Vesper Kane, beautiful, ambitious, merciless. Betrothed by covenant, a political bride chosen to fuse houses and end centuries of bloodshed. She was the kind of woman vampires respected, cold enough to do what must be done, disciplined enough to sacrifice people for stability, charming enough to make cruelty sound like reason. Aurelian had agreed to the betrothal because it protected the realm. He had told himself it was duty. He had told himself he did not need love. But Vesper had always wanted more than duty. She wanted ownership. She wanted the citadel to reflect her will. And if she had discovered Lina, she would not kill the girl quietly. She would expose her, shame her, make her a symbol. "See what happens," she would tell the court, "when kings forget their place?" In the grand hall, Aurelian materialized as shadow condensing into flesh. The air smelled wrong sweet with fresh blood magic, metallic with fear. He heard a sound that made his stomach turn, a human scream, muffled, not dying but being dragged toward humiliation. He moved, silent and lethal, following the arcane tremor through corridors until he reached the sealed wing. The door was cracked. The wards were bleeding. And Sarah Vale stood between Vesper and the human girl like a thin wall against a flood. Sarah's face was pale, her wrist blistered from the Forbidden's call, but she did not move aside. "My lady," she said again, voice trembling but firm. "Stop!" Vesper's gaze flicked toward Aurelian the moment he appeared. And for a fraction of a second even she froze because she had not expected him to come so fast. Then her smile returned, practiced and sharp. "My king," she purred, as if greeting him at a party. "How convenient. I was just about to remove a stain from your household." Lina stood behind Sarah, pressed against the wall, eyes wet, hands shaking as if she didn't know whether to fight or flee. She was human in a palace of monsters, and yet the only monster in the corridor was the woman smiling. Aurelian's eyes slid from Vesper to Lina, and something inside him went still in a different way because Lina was not merely frightened. She was marked. A faint bruise of dark magic circled her wrist, a binding beginning to take hold. And behind Vesper's charm, Aurelian sensed a deeper intent, not to kill Lina, but to turn her into a spectacle. A warning. A leva. A message to every elder watching. That was the moment the immortal king was frozen not by fear, but by the realization that his silence had allowed this. He had hidden Lina like a secret, and secrets always invite hunters. Aurelian stepped forward once, and the corridor's torches flickered as if the flame itself bowed. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Release her," he said to Vesper, each word calm enough to be mistaken for mercy, heavy enough to be law. Vesper's smile did not falter, but her eyes narrowed in careful calculation. "Her?" she repeated sweetly. "You mean the trespasser? The mortal hiding in your sealed wing? The one your servants have been feeding in secret?" She turned slightly, angling her body so Lina could see her face fully, so the girl could feel the attention of power. "Tell me, king," Vesper continued, "what would the elders say if they knew their sovereign broke his own doctrine? What would the realm do if they discovered you kept a human pet behind wards?" Lina flinched at the word pet, humiliation flushing her cheeks. Sarah's hands curled into fists at her sides, desperate to protect the girl from the poison of shame. Aurelian's gaze remained on the bruise of binding magic around Lina's wrist, and the longer he stared, the colder the air became. "You tampered with my wards," he said to Vesper. "You touched what was not yours." Vesper shrugged as if laws were decorative. "I protected your future," she replied. "A king cannot be ruled by sentiment. If you have allowed a mortal into your home, The realm will question your strength. I am preventing chaos. The word chaos was the excuse powerful people always used when they wanted to hurt someone weaker. Lina's voice rose, trembling but clear. I didn't ask to be here, she whispered. I was starving. I was scared. Your guards chased me and then the maid found me. She gave me soup. She gave me a blanket, she said. She said I would be safe. Her eyes lifted toward Aurelian, not begging, not seducing, only trying to understand why her life had become a battlefield. I didn't even know who you were, she added, as if that mattered. In truth, it mattered more than anything. She had offered respect before she knew power. She had called the fortress beautiful without knowing it belonged to a monster in legends. That kind of innocence was rare. It was why Aurelian had been unable to forget her. Vesper's laugh was soft and cruel. Listen to her, she mocked. A mortal speaks in a royal corridor as if she belongs. She flicked her fingers and the binding around Lina's wrist tightened. Lina gasped and staggered forward despite herself, dragged by magic like a puppet. Sarah moved instinctively to catch her, but Vesper's power shoved Sarah back into the wall. Stay in your place, Maid, Vesper snapped, her voice losing sweetness. You have already committed treason by calling the king. Sarah's mouth opened, but no sound came. She knew what Vesper was doing, framing her. If Vesper could make Sarah look like a conspirator, then Lina would look like a deliberate weakness, not an accident. The court would demand punishment. Vesper would offer it, and the king would be forced to agree or appear compromised. Aurelian's hand lifted slightly. Shadows coiled around his fingers like patient serpents. Enough, he said. Vesper's chin lifted. What will you do? She challenged. Kill me? Your betrothed? The covenant bride chosen by law? Do you think the elders will accept that? Do you think they will not call you a tyrant and unstable king ruled by a human girl's tears? Her words were knives aimed at the one thing that truly threatened Aurelian, not war, not assassination, but the realm's perception. A vampire king could survive rebellion, but he could not survive being seen as weak. Weak kings were devoured. That was the cruelty of immortals. They demanded perfection and punished humanity. Lina's breathing quickened, her eyes shining with panic. Please, she whispered, but she wasn't asking for love. She was asking for dignity. I'll leave, she said. I'll go back to the forest. I'll disappear. Just don't hurt her. Don't hurt Sarah. Even in terror, Lina protected the maid. Even in humiliation, she gave kindness. Aurelian felt something inside him crack not loudly, but irreversibly. He had built his reign on the idea that fear maintains order. Lina was proof that kindness could do what fear never did, inspire loyalty without forcing it. That was dangerous. That was revolutionary. That was why Vesper wanted her destroyed. Aurelian's eyes met Sarah's for the briefest moment. In Sarah's expression he saw years of silent service, but also something new, regret. Regret that she had followed orders without questioning, regret that hiding Lina had made Lina a target. Aurelian understood that regret too well. He turned back to Vesper. You want to teach the realm a lesson, he said, voice soft, lethal. So do I? With one motion, he severed the binding on Lina's wrist. The dark bruise evaporated, replaced by warmth that made Lina stumble in shock. Vesper's eyes widened, because the spell had been woven with her blood, and breaking it should have cost him. Yet Aurelian broke it as if it were thread. You will not touch her again, he said. Vesper recovered quickly, anger flashing beneath her elegance. Then you admit she matters, she hissed. You admit your weakness. Aurelian did not deny it. He did not confirm it. Instead, he stepped between Vesper and Lina, placing his body and immortal king's body between power and vulnerability. It was a choice made in public. In that corridor, the balance shifted. Lina stared up at him, stunned, and for the first time Aurelian allowed his voice to soften, not with romance, but with respect. You are not a stain, he said to Lina. You are a person. The words were simple. The impact was seismic. Vesper's smile shattered into fury. Fine, she whispered. If you will not destroy her, I will destroy the thing that protects you. She turned her gaze toward Sarah, and her magic rose again, aimed not at the human girl, but at the maid who had dared to choose compassion over fear. Vesper's power struck like a whip made of cold blood, curling around Sarah's throat and lifting her off the floor. Sarah's feet kicked once, twice, eyes wide, hands clawing at invisible force. Lina cried out and surged forward, but she stopped as Aurelian's shadow snapped up like a wall, blocking her. He was protecting Lina's body, yet he could not protect Lina from watching cruelty. That was the sickness of power. Even when you stop the blow, the memory still lands. See? Vesper snarled, her elegance gone now, revealing the hunger beneath. This maid betrayed you. She broke the highest law to call you here. She hid a mortal in your citadel. She is the rot. Sarah's face reddened as the magic tightened. She is loyal, Aurelian said, voice flat. Vesper laughed. Loyal to you, perhaps. But loyalty that disobeys law is treason. That was the point Vesper wanted the realm to accept. That compassion was treason. That mercy was disorder. That protecting the powerless was a threat. It was a political argument wearing a smile. Aurelian took one step forward, and the shadows in the corridor deepened until the walls looked like they were listening. Put her down, he commanded. Vesper's eyes glittered. Or what? You will kill me and invite a civil war? You will shatter the covenant and prove the elders right, that you cannot rule without emotion? Sarah's hands shook. Her gaze found Lina's, and in that look Lina saw something that made her throat tighten. Apology. Sarah was apologizing for pulling Lina into this, apologizing for not being able to protect her more quietly, apologizing for being too small in a world that punished smallness. Lina, trembling, whispered, "It's my fault." Aurelian heard it. His jaw tightened. "No," he said louder. "It is not." He turned his attention from Vesper to Lina fully, and in that moment, the corridor felt like it narrowed until only two people existed, a king who had never allowed himself to care, and a human girl who had never been allowed to matter. "You did not cause this," Aurelian said. "You are not the reason powerful people choose cruelty. They choose it because it is easy." Lina's eyes filled. No one had ever defended her like that, not with pity, but with principle. Vesper sensed the shift and panicked because she realized the king was not merely protecting a secret. He was reframing it. He was turning her cruelty into evidence against her. She tightened her grip on Sarah, making Sarah gasp. "Then choose," Vesper demanded. "Choose your maid or your mortal. Choose law or weakness." It was a trap designed to force a public admission. If Aurelian saved Sarah, Vesper would strike Lina. If he saved Lina, Vesper would kill Sarah and claim the king sacrificed his own servant for a human. Either way, Vesper would control the narrative. Aurelian's eyes flicked toward Sarah's burning wrist, the mark he had given her. It pulsed with the same forbidden channel she had used. Not extinction, then. Not the end of the world, but the end of someone's life in a way that would break something inside him forever. Aurelian exhaled slowly. Then he did something no one expected. He spoke a law aloud that had never been spoken outside the royal vault. "By the sovereign blood oath," he said, each word ringing like iron, "I revoke the covenant binding with House Cain." The corridor trembled. Vesper's face drained of color. "You can't," she whispered. "You'll destabilize everything. You already did," Aurelian replied. In vampire society, the betrothal covenant was not romance, it was governance. Revoking it was an earthquake. But Aurelian understood something Vesper did not. Stability built on cruelty always breaks eventually. It just breaks on the backs of the weakest first. "You attacked my servant," he continued. "You attempted to bind a human within my walls. You manipulated my wards. You used law as a weapon, not as a shield." Vesper's lips parted in disbelief. "You are choosing her," she hissed, eyes cutting toward Lina with pure hatred. "You are choosing a mortal over your realm." Aurelian's gaze did not waver. "I am choosing principle," he said, "and the realm will adapt." Vesper's grip on Sarah loosened only because her shock momentarily distracted her. In that instant, Aurelian's shadow snapped around Sarah like a cloak, lowering her gently to the ground. Sarah coughed, drawing air, eyes watering. Lina rushed to her, supporting her with shaking hands. "Why?" Lina whispered to Aurelian, voice fragile. "Why would you do that for me?" Aurelian's answer was not poetry. It was truth. "Because you were kind when you did not have to be," he said. "Because you offered respect without knowing who I was. Because you reminded me that power means nothing if it exists only to crush." Vesper's eyes turned feral. She realized she was losing control, and when powerful people lose control, they escalate. "If you strip me of covenant," she hissed, "then I will strip you of reputation." She raised her hand and, with a slice of blood magic, opened a thin portal not to escape, but to broadcast. A shimmering arcane window formed in the air, revealing the obsidian conclave chamber. The elders? The lords, watching, hearing. Vesper smiled again, triumphant. "Let them see," she said, voice sweet. "Let them see their king defending a human girl hidden in his citadel." Lina froze, realizing what this meant. Not just danger, but public judgment. Sarah's face went pale. Aurelian's expression did not change. He simply stepped closer to the arcane window and looked directly into the eyes of the elders. "Yes," he said. "I defended her." A gasp rippled through the portal as immortals reacted. Vesper's smile widened until Aurelian continued. "And if any among you believes that kindness is weakness," he said, voice like steel, "then you have forgotten what a king is for." The elders in the portal did not speak immediately. Their silence was not respect. It was calculation. In vampire politics, every moral statement is treated like a strategic move. Aurelian could see it in their eyes. Some were outraged, believing a human in the citadel meant contamination. Some were curious, sensing a shift in power. A few rare, cautious looked ashamed, as if remembering a time long ago when they, too, had been young enough to believe strength could include mercy. Vesper fed on the tension. "You see?" she whispered to Lina, voice low enough to be intimate and cruel. "You are a weapon now, whether you wanted to be or not. And weapons get broken." Lina's hands trembled. She felt exposed, not merely seen. She had lived her whole life being judged for what she lacked: money, family, status. Now she was being judged for what she was: human. As if humanity itself were a crime. The humiliation was so sharp that for a moment she couldn't breathe. Then Sarah's hand found hers, squeezing, small, steady. It was the simplest act of courage, holding on. Lina swallowed and lifted her chin. She had been weak her entire life, but weakness had never meant she was worthless. She looked at Aurelian, and the king surprised her not by roaring, not by slaughtering, but by standing there, calm, choosing to face the consequences of defending her. That calm gave her something she had never owned: permission to exist without apologizing. Vesper, sensing Lina's growing steadiness, shifted tactics. "My king," she said to Aurelian, addressing him with ceremonial sweetness, "if you insist on protecting this mortal, then prove she is not a liability. Prove she offers the realm value. Otherwise, your sentimental choice becomes treason against your own people." It was a brutal argument dressed as reason. If the powerless cannot justify their existence, they deserve harm. Aurelian's eyes narrowed. "Value is not measured only by usefulness," he said. Vesper laughed softly. "Tell that to your elders." She turned slightly toward the portal. "Honored lords," she announced, "our king shelters a mortal girl in secret. If he wishes to redefine our laws, let him present his justification." The elders murmured. One stepped forward: Lord Carvath, still enraged from the conclave disruption. "A mortal within the Blood-Veil?" He snarled through the portal. "This is an insult. A weakness that invites hunters, war, chaos." Another elder, Lady Mirren, colder and more careful, asked, "What is her name?" Lina swallowed. "Lina," she whispered. Her voice carried through the portal like a candle in a storm. The elders stared, some with disgust, some with curiosity. Lina, Lady Mirren repeated, tasting the human name as if it were foreign. Why were you here? Lina's cheeks burned. She could have lied. She could have begged. But something in Aurelian's earlier words, "You are a person," made her choose honesty. I was hungry, she said. I was sleeping near the forest because I had nowhere else to go. I thought I would die. Sarah found me. She helped me. She glanced at Sarah with gratitude so deep it hurt. I didn't know this was a vampire citadel. I didn't know anything. I just didn't want to die. A cruel elder scoffed. Pathetic. The words stung. Lina's hands clenched. Then she added quietly, but I didn't steal. I didn't hurt anyone. I tried to be useful. I cleaned, I worked, I stayed hidden because Sarah told me it was dangerous. She looked through the portal as if she could force immortals to understand what it meant to be powerless. If you want me gone, she continued, voice steadier, I'll go. I won't fight. But don't punish Sarah for helping me. That single sentence shifted the air. Because Lina did what many powerful beings forgot how to do, she protected someone weaker than herself. Sarah, stunned, stared at Lina. Vesper's smile faltered. Aurelian's gaze softened not with romance, but with respect that was beginning to turn into something deeper. Lord Carvath sneered. A noble sacrifice to make you look pure, he mocked. A performance. Lina shook her head. No, she said. It's not a performance. Sarah didn't have to help me. She did. If kindness is illegal here, then maybe your laws are wrong. The corridor went still. Even the portal seemed to pause. A human girl had just challenged vampire law. Not with aggression, but with moral clarity. Vesper's face hardened. Enough, she snapped, unable to tolerate a narrative she didn't control. She raised her hand again, ready to strike because when someone can't win with words, they reach for force. But Aurelian was already moving. Shadows surged, not as a weapon, but as a boundary. He wrapped Lina and Sarah in a protective veil, leaving Vesper standing alone on the other side. You will not harm them, he said. Vesper's eyes flashed with hatred. You're making her your queen, she hissed, spitting the accusation like venom. Aurelian did not answer immediately. His silence was heavy. Lina's heart hammered because she understood how impossible that idea was. She was human. He was a king, yet the way he looked at her now, like she mattered, made her chest ache with something she did not dare name. Aurelian finally spoke, voice low, meant for Lina as much as the realm. No one owns you, he said. Not Vesper. Not the elders. Not even me. Lina's breath caught. He continued, turning his gaze to the portal. If the realm cannot tolerate mercy, he said, then the realm must be taught. That was the true twist, not that Lina had secret power, not that she spoke an ancient language, but that her humanity was awakening something powerful in the king, a willingness to change the system that rewarded cruelty. Vesper realized what was happening and turned desperate. Then I will expose you further, she hissed. I will call the hunters. I will tell every rival house you keep a mortal treasure in your walls. Aurelian's expression hardened into winter. Do so, he said, and you will learn what happens when you mistake my restraint for weakness. For the first time, Vesper looked afraid, not because he threatened violence, but because she recognized certainty. She had built her power on controlling narratives. Aurelian was removing her control, and Lina, the girl meant to be crushed, was standing upright. The fallout came fast, as Aurelian knew it would. Messages surged through blood channels. Spies moved. Rival houses whispered. The Citadel's court gathered in the grand hall under chandeliers of crimson crystal, drawn by the rumor that their king had broken covenant law for a human girl. Lina stood behind a column at the edge of the hall, half hidden in shadow, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. She could feel eyes searching for her like hunters searching for prey. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to run back to the forest and be nobody again. But Sarah stood beside her, steady, And Aurelian stood before the court like a storm that refused to announce itself with thunder. He simply existed, and the room bent around his presence. Vesper arrived last, dressed like victory until she saw the king's expression. It was not anger. It was judgment. She took her place with her chin high, as if she were still the rightful queen. Aurelian addressed the court without ceremony. "Today," he said, "we end the practice of punishing kindness." Murmurs rippled like uneasy water. "We end," he continued, "the habit of calling compassion weakness." He turned slightly, and his eyes found Lina's hiding place, not exposing her, not forcing her forward, merely acknowledging her existence. "A human girl entered my territory," he said, "not as a spy, not as a thief, but as a starving person. A maid chose to help her. That maid broke protocol, yes. But she upheld something older than protocol, dignity." Vesper laughed sharply. "Dignity does not rule a kingdom," she snapped. "Fear does. Law does. Blood does." Aurelian's gaze shifted to her. "Then you have misunderstood why kingdoms collapse," he replied. "They collapse when the powerful convince themselves they are allowed to be cruel." The room fell silent. The elders watching through smaller portals listened, alert, sensing a political fault line. Vesper stepped forward, voice rising. "He has already shattered the covenant," she announced to the court. "He has weakened us. He has invited ridicule and war." She turned, pointing toward Lina's shadowed corner. "And he hides the cause like a secret shame." Lina's stomach dropped. She felt hundreds of eyes swing toward her hiding place. She wanted to shrink into stone. But before the court could surge, Aurelian lifted one hand. Shadows rose, not violent, but firm, holding the crowd in stillness. "No one approaches her," he said. "Not because she is fragile, but because she is not property." His voice filled the hall. "If you must judge, judge me. I am your king." It was the first time Lina understood what protection truly meant. Not being sheltered like a thing, but being defended like a person whose life had value without conditions. She stepped forward before she could talk herself out of it. Her legs shook, but she moved anyway, emerging from shadow into the light. Gasps followed. Lina felt the weight of immortal judgment press on her skin. She looked at faces that had never known hunger, never known dismissal, never known what it meant to be treated as disposable. Her throat tightened. Then she remembered the only truth she owned: she had survived. She had not survived because she was special. She had survived because someone had been kind. "I don't belong here," Lina said, voice trembling but clear. "I know that. I didn't come to steal anyone's power. I don't want a throne. I don't even want revenge." She looked toward Vesper, not with hatred, but with sadness. "I just wanted to live." The simplicity of it unsettled the room. Powerful beings preferred complicated threats. A desire to live was harder to label as evil. Lina continued, "Where I came from, people laughed at me because I was poor. They called me worthless. They told me I deserved whatever happened to me." Her eyes flicked toward Sarah, gratitude softening her fear. "Then one maid gave me soup and a blanket like I was human." She swallowed, emotions thick. "If that is a crime here, then your strength is not strength. It's just cruelty wearing jewelry." Vesper's face reddened. "You dare," she began, but Aurelian cut her off. "Enough," he said, and the hall chilled. "Vesper Kane," he declared, "you are banished from the Blood-Veil dominion. You will not be harmed. You will not be hunted. You will simply be removed from power." The court stirred in shock. Banishment without bloodshed was unheard of. It was mercy for someone who didn't deserve it. And that was the point. Aurelian turned to the court. "Let this be the lesson," he said. "We do not become monsters because we are immortal. We become monsters when we forget what it is like to be vulnerable." His gaze swept the nobles. "From this day forward, any servant who shows compassion will be honored, not punished. Any noble who abuses the powerless will face judgment." He paused, then added, "Power that exists only to dominate is not power worth keeping." The elders watching through portals did not protest. Not because they agreed, but because they recognized something dangerous, a king who was no longer governed by fear of opinion. Aurelian finally turned toward Lina, his voice soft, not romantic, but honest. "You may leave," he said, offering her freedom in front of everyone. "Or you may stay under my protection as long as you choose." No chain, no ownership. Lina's eyes filled with tears. She had expected to be sentenced. She had not expected to be given a choice. That choice was the greatest gift anyone had ever given her. She looked at Sarah, then at Aurelian, and she understood the slow-burn truth forming between them. Love wasn't being declared. Respect was being built. Trust offered carefully. "I don't know what I want yet," Lina admitted. "I've never had choices." Aurelian nodded as if that answer was enough. "Then we start there," he said. Later, when the hall emptied and the citadel grew quiet again, Lina stood on a balcony under twilight. Aurelian approached, keeping respectful distance. "You called my home beautiful," he said quietly. Lina wiped her tears and managed a small, shaky smile. "It can be," she answered. "If the people inside it choose to be." Aurelian looked out over his kingdom, and for the first time in centuries, the weight on his chest eased, not because his reign was safe, but because it was finally meaningful. The moral wasn't preached. It was lived. Respect everyone, because you never know who is carrying the quiet bravery that changes a kingdom.